Hey, hey. Hey, hey. What the hell? What the hell? Oh, goodness gracious. And now it won't let me turn my phone. This is a disaster. This is an absolute disaster. How is this? It won't let me turn my phone now. Like, this is a nightmare. This is an utter nightmare. This is an utter, complete nightmare. So we're just going to do it like that. Oh, and now it's still locked. My goodness, what in the world? This is like SeaWorld or something. What is this? Oh, goodness gracious. So I guess I just have to hold my phone and it's going to wobble for the rest of this live. This is unbelievable. I need to, wow. All right, so we're just going to answer the rest of these even though my phone is going to be shaky. This is awful. All right, I was telling folks, the smartest thing I've ever heard is that scarcity is the cause of so much of the injustice in our world, and on top of that, the road to creating a society of egalitarianism, a society without inequality, the road to that is eradicating scarcity, is creating a society of vast material abundance. Wow. So here we go. I'm just going to keep holding my phone for the rest of this. All right. So there we go. Yeah. All right. Is it important to understand the monetary system? That's the next super chat question I've got. And I would say yes. The more we can understand economics, the better. The more we can understand how the imperialists operate and how the global financial system works, the better. It's good to be able to understand these things, I would argue. So yes, the answer to that question is yes. I would answer yes. Are left and right outdated terms? No, they are not. The terms of left and right, the political designations of left and right, originated with the French National Assembly. And those who favored the monarchy in the old system, they sat on the right. Whereas it was those who wanted to march into the future and believed in historical progress, they sat on the left. And that is the origin of the terms, the designations rather, left and right. And so I don't think it's outdated. I do think, however, there are many people walking around on both the left and the right who don't fit the definition. I think there's a lot of people who call themselves left who do not believe in historical progress. And that is the very definition, the very, very definition of left. So there you go. All righty. The European Union is thinking about giving up on NATO. Well, there is an increased gap now between the European mainland and Britain because of Brexit. And the European mainland countries are much friendlier to China. And they, with the Nord Stream 2, and there's an increased, Germany is friendlier to Russia, and that there is a gap, right? And imperialist rivalries are increasing. And much of the European mainland has long felt, especially Germany and France, that Britain and the United States do not have their best interests at heart, right? And, the fact that France has embraced nuclear power the way it has, that has been an expression of that. It's well understood that the oil markets are dominated by the United States and Britain. The super major oil companies, BP, Chevron, Shell Oil, and ExxonMobil are British and American. Wall Street and London dominate the oil markets, and so the French have embraced nuclear power as a form of opposition to that. World War I and World War II were largely about the fact that Germany, especially Germany and Austria, felt like they were never really allowed to become full members of the imperialism club. They felt like they were locked out of becoming full-on imperialist powers, and that was the basis of the rivalries that gave the basis for World War I and then eventually World War II. The fact that many countries within the European Union are now skeptical of NATO shouldn't be surprising, because at the end of the day, a lot of the hosting of U.S. military bases, et cetera, doesn't really benefit these countries, I would argue. All right. How do we deal with the infiltration of leftist groups by such organizations, three-letter organizations? That's the next question. Well, the main thing is that right now nobody should be engaging in illegal activism. Right now, the focus should be on the raising of consciousness through protests. the raising of awareness, through political education. And so I would argue that if someone approaches your organization urging you to carry guns, urging you to engage in ultra-left adventurous terrorism, you need to get the hell away from that person. Because either that person is themselves a provocateur, or that person is someone who could potentially put you in legal danger through their own stupidity. One or the other, right? And maybe a little bit of both. Sometimes there are, useful idiots, as they call them. The main thing is that right now we should be engaging in educational work. We should be building communities of solidarity. We should not be engaging in illegal activity because that is not working class, right? The working people of the United States need to find out what socialism actually is. They need to have their consciousness raised. They need to become aware of issues. They need to build communities to care for each other. And eventually they may be forced at some point to defend themselves from the repression of the old system. But that's not now. And right now it's simply a matter of building communities of solidarity. So yes, there will be informers that will come into your organizations. Yes, there will be people that are there to spy for the government. And you should just recognize that. But if you are simply building communities of solidarity, if you have no tolerance for anyone advocating violence or terrorism, and if you make clear that that's not what your organization will ever do, on top of that, if you simply do the work that needs to be done, then you probably don't have that much to worry about. I mean, it's important to not allow yourself to be set up, to take certain security precautions, to not fall into the trap of being manipulated against other activist groups, which is why I urge people to develop tunnel vision. Tunnel vision, comrades, tunnel vision, right? There's been a huge amount of effort to try and manipulate leftists and revolutionaries against each other, and the internet makes that so much easier. Now, years ago, they would send the Black Panther Party letters that they, from other organizations to manipulate them. Nowadays, all they have to do is set up some fake accounts on social media and incite people. And I've seen some stuff in the last couple months that's like nothing I've ever seen along those lines. I mean, social media is able to manipulate the slightest thing and turn it into something that never goes away. So what I would urge people to do is, rather than trying to engage in some kind of regroupment, out of the movement to the masses, and don't be provoked, right? And don't let them stir up the differences between us. Out of the movement to the masses, tunnel vision, just tunnel vision. Focus on the task that we must do, not the task that somebody else should be doing and is not doing, not what somebody else thinks of the work that you're doing. Focus on what you must do and do it. And if somebody comes along and has the idea that you should do something else, something potentially dangerous, go the other way. Focus on the task that you must do. Mao Zedong, he said, "You fight your way, I fight mine." And that's a good way of putting it. Focus on the task that you must do, tunnel vision, and don't let anyone push you off the task. If you focus on doing the task that you want to do, and that task is not illegal, and that task is not ultra-left adventurism, and you're focused on engaging in political education, building communities of solidarity, and you take appropriate security measures, you should be okay. Keep your eyes on the horizon, someone said. Well, there you go. That is my advice to you. Invest in direct action efforts like food banks, workers' capacity, all right. Action effort, food banks, writing it down, all righty. Tucker Carlson praising China. Tucker Carlson is all over the place. He does some segments on his show that are absolutely reprehensible, but there are times on his show where he'll talk about foreign policy in a way that other folks won't talk about it. There are times on his show where he will sound almost, open to anti-capitalism and kind of economic populist, but most of the time he's horrendous. He's all over the place. And this is due to the fact that he's now on the outs. It's the liberals that are the mainstream voice of imperialism now. So because of that, the right is going to become much more diverse, right? During the Bush years, you'll remember the libertarians and the communists and the liberals, we were all kind of together at those anti-war rallies because we were outside of the mainstream. Well, now the far left And, the right wing and the Republicans and, and libertarians, in a lot of ways, they're just kind of lumped together as the opposition. They don't agree with each other. They have a very different worldview. But Fox News is now the voice of the opposition in the United States. And the opposition is very broad. There are many different perspectives in the opposition. And so because Fox News is now the opposition, they will raise points from other aspects of the opposition that may not be in line. Their overall perspective is a right-wing neoliberal one. They favor privatizations and cutbacks. They favor, hawkish foreign policy, etc. But they are the opposition, and the opposition also includes anti-war voices. The opposition also includes more genuine, class-conscious socialists. So there's going to be confusion like that. Air America used to bring on like Ron Paul and stuff during the Bush years because Air America, the liberals, they were the opposition, and that happens when the way U.S. politics is set up with a duality. You're with the current regime or you're against it. You're a Democrat or a Republican. That leads to some strange stuff like this. And Tucker Carlson is a result of that. And, we should not ever put up any unnecessary barricade between ourselves and the workers. If we have the opportunity to address the workers over Fox News, we should use it. If we have the opportunity to no unnecessary barricade should ever be put up. So, I'm not opposed to anybody going on Tucker Carlson. But, is Tucker Carlson a comrade? No. Is Tucker Carlson a progressive? No. Is most of what Tucker Carlson does reprehensible? Yes. So there you go. How does Trotskyism fit into this? Well, Trotskyism is basically an attempt to hold on to Karl Marx's teachings and not accept what Lenin put forward. It's an attempt to not become fully anti-imperialist and maintain the Marxist worldview. Vladimir Lenin came forward. He understood that imperialism had developed, that capitalism had moved toward its monopoly stage of imperialism. As a result of that, the revolutionary energy would not be in the West, it would be in the East, it would be in the developing countries. Well, Trotskyism has the theory of permanent revolution, which basically says the West is the best, that the only place it matters to have socialist revolution is in the West. The focus of revolutionaries should be on the West. That's the theory of permanent revolution. And because of that, ultimately, Trotskyism broke with the Soviet Union because the Soviet people did not accept that worldview. Stalin triumphed because Stalin understood that they needed to build socialism in one country, and the Soviet Union couldn't focus on trying to foment unrest and revolution in the West. And that's Trotskyism. Trotskyism is an attempt to hold on to some of the first world bias in Marx, and it's kind of a refusal to go on full into Leninism. And it is also an expression of the middle class intelligentsia. One of the Saxton lectures that remains to be posted is all about Trotskyism. I go over Trotsky's life story and stuff. And people should enjoy that. There's a whole lecture on Trotskyism. I believe it'll be lecture 2.2. Saxton lecture 2.2 is all about Leon Trotsky. So look forward to that if you're following the Saxton lectures. And please help me promote the Saxton lectures. They're very important. They're a very important compilation of our Marxist worldview. Alrighty, Ron Paul saying that the Democrats are Marxists and want to destroy the family. Well, Marxism understands that the family, like all other institutions, is subject to change. Under hunter-gatherer civilization, the family didn't really exist. The whole tribe was a family. Then you had the emergence of private property, and the family became a man and all of his wives and children and slaves. And now we have monogamy, which is, you marry one other person. And now we're starting to have gay marriage in Western countries, and that the family is constantly in a state of change. There is no eternal, holy, sacred unit called the family, right? The family is different in different societies. The website is cpiusa.org, no dash. And that's just what Marxism teaches, is that the family changes. When the economic base changes, the society around it changes, the superstructure changes. That's all it is. It's not, an attempt to dismantle, dismantle working people, living with their kids or living with their parents or people having happy marriages or anything like that. It's just recognizing that the nature of the family changes as society changes, as the economic base changes, the superstructure changes. That's all that there is there. The person said, should we focus on direct action efforts, food banks, etc.? The focus on education, right? You need to focus on education. Yeah, the site was down for a little bit, but it's back. cpiusa.org. Focus on education. right? Start a reading group around the City Builders Manual. Engage in political education. That should be the focus. More than anything, the focus should be in political education and building communities around that political education. Building communities of solidarity. That should be the focus. More than anything, the focus should be on building communities of solidarity. A new upsurge in the struggle against U.S. imperialism is now emerging throughout the world. Ever since World War II, U.S. imperialism and its followers have been continuously launching wars of aggression, but the people of various countries have been continuously waging revolutionary wars to defeat their aggression. While the danger of a new world war still exists and the people of all countries must get prepared, revolution is the main trend in the world today. While the danger of a new world war still exists and the people of all countries must get prepared, revolution is the main trend in the world today. We need a government of action that will fight for working families. We need a government of action to fight for working families. We need a government of action that will fight for working families. We need a government of action that will fight for working families. We need a government of action that will fight for working families. Good night, everyone.